The NBA trade deadline just passed, and I'm going to be grading a few of the most major deals today. I'm going to start with the Anthony Davis trade because it's arguably one of the more impactful trades. Anthony Davis was sent to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Chris Middleton and a few other young guys, plus 3 first round picks. Now, I do think the Mavericks win this trade by far. They got a ton of value out of Anthony Davis. Those 3 picks are Wizards picks. And at the end of the day, an unhealthy Anthony Davis plus Trae Young is probably not going to be that great. And those picks could be pretty valuable for Memphis. And they really didn't get that many good players. Chris Middleton's apparently a buyout candidate. But with a really, really good draft class, the Dallas Mavericks could look to get a good pick in this year's draft, pair that with Cooper Flag, and hope that those Wizards picks end up being good. Obviously, it's not the return they would have liked to see for Luka, but getting 3 first round picks plus some young guys and a guy like Max Christie that they got from the original Luka trade, it's not terrible. I think that it could be a lot worse. They could have gotten a lot less for Anthony Davis, maybe if they even held on to him. But it's very interesting to see what Washington is doing because pairing Trae Young with Anthony Davis is really interesting. And they do have a good young core. They have guys like Alex Sarr, Kaishan George, and they still have a few more first-round picks that they could use to build another team. And in a lacking Eastern Conference, it could be pretty interesting. Next, I'm going to talk about the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. This was a big surprise. I didn't even see Jaren really being traded unless it was to the Lakers for Austin Reeves, and he gets traded to the Utah Jazz. Now, this deal is surprising, but it really makes a ton of sense. Pairing Walker Kessler with Jaren Jackson Jr., not to mention a 7-foot Lauri Markkanen who will likely play small forward, and all-star level Keontae George, it's going to be really, really good. They were able to keep Ace Bailey in this deal and only give up Walter Clayton Jr., who is definitely a solid rookie, and I'm sure they didn't want to trade him, but at the end of the day, they have Isaiah Collier, and Clayton's already 23. He might not be great. In my opinion, I think he'll end up like a Tyus Jones level solid backup point guard, but I don't think he really turns into a star. Taylor Hendricks, it's his 3rd year on the Jazz. He was out all of last season with a major broken leg. So while I think there is still upside in Taylor Hendricks, same thing, probably nothing more than a role player. They also give up Niang and Kyle Anderson, 2 vets that didn't really fit in Utah long term. But I really do like what their starting lineup could be next year. They're definitely going to be a playoff contender in the West. The only problem with this deal is the 3 first-round picks they gave away are not very valuable. It's a Lakers next year, and the Lakers probably will be pretty good next year. And then it's a swap best of Minnesota, Utah, and Cleveland. And while that pick could be good if something goes south for Cleveland or if Utah doesn't work out, but I have a feeling all 3 of those teams will be in the playoffs, and it'll be a late first-round pick. Then you have the Suns in 2031. And that pick is probably the most valuable pick here because I don't think the Suns will be great in 2031. But the problem with that is it's not what they gave up, it's what they potentially gave up. This is a really, really good draft class. You have guys like Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ DiBonsa, and Koa Pete. All 4 of those guys are really, really good and will likely have long careers in the NBA. And getting Jaren Jackson Jr. could potentially make the Jazz good enough where they're not in the play-in, but they're still around the 9th pick. And the OKC Thunder have their pick unless it's in the bottom 8. So if the Jazz are too good with Jaren, they could potentially lose their pick, but not sure if that will happen because Keontae George is injured right now. They can play the injury game like they have the last few years where all their guys are always injured, but at the end of the day, it's a great trade for Utah. We'll see how it pans out next season. And for Memphis, I think it's a great kickstart from the rebuild. Get 3 pretty, not super valuable picks, but 3 definitely value picks as well as two good young guys. It'll be interesting to see what Memphis can do. Next trade we'll talk about is the Ivica Zubac trade. This trade definitely surprised me. I think it's the most risky trade of the deadline, but the Indiana Pacers sent Bennedict Mathurin and 2 first-round picks, one of which is their pick this year if it falls from the range of 6 to 9. And while that seems really specific, the Pacers are currently a bottom 4 team in the NBA. So what this trade does is it allows the Pacers to keep their pick if they're able to be good, because if the pick is bottom 5, then they keep it. Like I said, it's a generational draft, so if they continue to be bad, they're able to keep their pick. However, if they end up being good, make the playoffs, they'll also keep their pick because it's 10 through 30. But the Clippers kind of take a gamble here. If the Pacers are a bottom 5 team, then really they only get 1 first-round pick than Bennedict Mathurin, which in my opinion is still a good return. Bennedict Mathurin was a really good player in their finals run last year, and I'm sure the Pacers hate to see him go, but at the end of the day, they have Aaron Nesmith, they have Andrew Nembhard, and with Mathurin going into restricted free agency, they would have had to pay him a lot, and for an archetype that they already have 2 of, I don't think it makes sense to keep him. Zubac is really good, and he replaces Miles Turner, and he's arguably better. But unless the Pacers' pick is bottom 5, this trade could be very painful. If their pick falls to 6th, then this year could basically be a straight-up waste. They'll have not made the playoffs, and they won't get their pick through this Zubac trade. But if it's top 5, they keep it. So really, this one will be decided by the draft lottery who wins the trade. If the pick's 6 to 9, I do think the Clippers win this trade. Getting 2 picks, including a lottery pick, as well as young Bennedict Mathurin, that's a lot of value for Zubac, who's been really, really good. But at the same time, he's 27. He's been somewhat inconsistent his career. He was averaging around 10 and 10 for a while, and then he's gotten better throughout his career. Now he's averaging more around 18 and 10. So I do like Zubac for the Pacers. He really fits. And even if that pick doesn't convey, it could be interesting to have Siakam, a healthy Halliburton, and Zubac, plus some of the role players that they still have. So that trade's pretty decent. Then we go into little bit smaller trades. Obviously, there's the Trae Young one. I made a video about that. You can go check that out. Ja Morant was not traded, which is a bit of a surprise for me. After Memphis trading Jaren, I even thought that they would take a Ja Morant trade, even if they didn't get quite what they want, because it makes more sense to move on. And I don't know if Ja's value will go up. He might be easier to trade in the offseason, but I'm not sure they'll get a lot more for him. You have other salary dump trades. The Celtics trade Chris Boucher to the Jazz to open up the buyout market. Then an interesting one is the Celtics. They did trade Anthony Simons to the Bulls for Nikola Vucevic. The Bulls were one of the most active teams of this trade deadline, acquiring a ton of young guards. And I do think that this trade's a win-win, honestly. Vucevic didn't make sense in Chicago anymore, and on his expiring contract at his age, he didn't have a ton of value. So getting a young Anthony Simons, who I think is being undervalued because he's a free agent this offseason, Simons was really good for the Portland Trailblazers, and while he is kind of a dying archetype in the NBA, which is a small scoring guard who's not great on defense, he's still very solid. And the Celtics get center help because Jason Tatum will likely come back this offseason, which is a huge surprise. Now, for some other Bulls trades, the Bulls also traded Coby White to the Hornets in exchange for Colin Sexton. They were able to get Jaden Ivey from the Pistons, who I think Jaden Ivey is really, really good. And he was looking like a core piece of the Pistons before he got injured. Then after he comes back, he doesn't really fit anymore. And I think the Bulls could have a very, very good player in Jalen Duren. They sent Kevin Huerter to the Pistons in that deal. They also were able to acquire Mike Conley from the Timberwolves, who they traded to Charlotte. But I'd say the most interesting trade is the fact that they traded Ayo Dosunmu to the Timberwolves for Rob Dillingham, a first-round pick, and 3 seconds. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was just 3 seconds, no first. But this trade is honestly fatal for Minnesota. Yes, Dosunmu is better than Dillingham, and yes, he fits more going forward. The trade itself isn't very bad. But if you remember to Rob Dillingham's draft class, they traded multiple first-round picks to trade up and get him. And then now trading him plus second-round picks to get Ayo Dosunmu, who is definitely good, averaging around 15 points per game on good shooting for the Bulls. It's just not enough for what they gave up. Picks are very valuable in today's NBA, and for what they gave up to ultimately end with Ayo Dosunmu is not good. So while the trade itself is pretty solid, it really, really is bad, the trade they originally did to get Dillingham. Hornets were also very active. They were able to get Coby White. I really do like that. And they definitely made some interesting moves. Honestly, it was a relatively quiet deadline. It was definitely a lot more moves than we thought were going to happen. We weren't really sure a Jaren trade was going to happen. I wasn't sure Anthony Davis was going to get traded. Didn't really think Zubac was going to get traded. James Harden gets traded out of nowhere because he requests a trade out of nowhere. And, we saw Trae Young get traded. But it was definitely, I'd say, more quiet than usual. Usually we get a bunch of random role players being traded, but I think with the new apron and a lot more teams contending this year, they wanted to just keep their roster set. So while there were a lot of other small moves that I'm not going to talk about in this video, it was definitely an exciting trade deadline. We also saw DeAndre Hunter go to the Kings, and the James Harden, Darius Garland trade, I forgot about that one, but really, the Cavs win if they win a championship or at least win the East this year, because at this point in time, James Harden is better than Darius Garland, but he's also 36 and known to be unhappy with his team. So he's also known to not be a great playoff performer. However, James Harden and Donovan Mitchell in your backcourt does seem really interesting, so it'll really just depend on how much they're able to win. But long-term, the Clippers definitely win this deal, and long-term, the Clippers made all the right moves, because even if they don't necessarily win the deal with the Pacers, if the pick doesn't convey, they were able to get some picks back, get some young players in Mathurin and Garland, and this offseason they'll be able to trade Kawhi or even buy him out if there's not very many options, because he is making $50 million. But they were able to reset the timeline quite a bit, and while they don't have their own picks, as long as they're able to build around a play-in team every year and do that until they get their picks back, it'll be really interesting to see what the Clippers can do. Thank you so much for watching. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season, and, that's definitely a hard task, so just subscribe if you like my video, and see you next time on No Bias Hoops.